Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here at Raptors Digest, breaking down a Toronto Raptors player target that we could bring in that I think could have a significant impact on this roster if he is signed and targeted by the Toronto Raptors. And you saw the thumbnail, you've seen people talking about him on Reddit and Twitter, but some crazy news came out a couple days ago in regards to the Milwaukee Bucks center, DeMarcus Cousins, after having a stellar performance against our Toronto Raptors. He's been waived. He's been waived by the Bucks. They want more roster flexibility heading to the buyout deadline and all that stuff. And Shams came out and said that there's expected to be a lot of interest on in Boogie Cousins when you look throughout the markets and stuff. And there's definitely a team in the Toronto, or the Raptors should certainly be one of those teams, given the fact the only thing people have been talking about ever since we fumbled the bag with Serge Ibaka and Giannis ended up signing with the Bucks and all that sorts of things, and we duct taped a solution together with Aaron Baines and Alex Len. Ever since that point, Raptors fans have been calling for a true center to be brought into this team. Now, I'm not saying DeMarcus Cousins would be that. I'm not saying he'd be our starter. I'm not saying he's going to be the all-NBA, all-star caliber player that, Riker and I have been talking about since 2017, bringing in and being that ideal guy. But there is sort of a hole at the Toronto Raptors center position. It's been patched up through stellar play by Khem Birch when he's healthy, inconsistent but sometimes solid play by Precious Achiuwa. It's not to trash on Precious Achiuwa because everyone knows that's listens to this podcast. I'm always spewing the propaganda. I think the potential's there. The next Giannis better than Bam. Not to take it too far out of proportions, but I'm high on Precious Achiuwa long term, but he has been inconsistent this season, and his touch around the rim is still not where you want it to be for a guy that you're going to want to rely upon as we make our playoff push, because that's right, as of recording, we're the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference, and 3 seeds away from my top 4 seed statement prophecy that was looking a little bit tough there for a while, but I'm happy I held on to that take. Didn't renege it by any means, but getting a center in. And then obviously Chris Boucher has been playing some minutes up there. I've said it consistently. I think he's better at a power forward position or playing alongside another true big man. Like when we see him play with Precious Achiuwa or Khem Birch, even though those guys are both 6'9", and they play centers. They're more center position. Chris Boucher tends to do a lot better when he's on the weak side, coming over, being able to block shots, being able to cherry pick in the press and deflect passes and do all those crazy stuff, block 3-point shots. That's when Chris Boucher is at his most valuable defensively. And then, coming into the dunker spot, obviously his 3-point shooting has been inconsistent, but he's been playing the center position this year and started off poorly, but has gotten better as the season's gone along. I thought he had a really good outing against the Utah Jazz last night, but I digress on all the Toronto Raptors players. You guys see them night in, night out, right? I'm not saying Boogie Cousins is going to be coming in and being the savior, being that guy that will be, just a game changer, top seed, number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, which an All-NBA Boogie might have been. But if you look at a common theme amongst these Raptors players, it's on the defensive end, they bring it. Precious Achiuwa, I think, is one of the top 10 centers in terms of rim defense, which is crazy considering he's 6'8", 6'9". Khem Birch obviously has those long arms. Not as mobile as other players, but certainly block shots and do his dirty work down low, get some rebounds, and then obviously I brought up Chris Boucher, can get those weak side blocks, do all that sort of stuff. But the common theme is great athletes, great defensively, offensively, question marks. None of them have been consistent from beyond the 3-point line. Precious Achiuwa specifically has just struggled finishing around the rim. Birch has that floater, but that comes and goes occasionally. And then Chris Boucher, he's either scoring 30 points or 0 in any given night. But DeMarcus Cousins brings a different dimension of player. And this is the player that we're talking about this season. You pull up his stats, you look at him, they're pretty interesting because he's averaging 9 points, 6 rebounds in limited minutes, and assists per game, a steal, half a block, but the percentages aren't that great. That's the first thing we do have to address. 47% is not great for a big man, and 37% from the 3-point line is not that solid. However, if you look at the attempts from DeMarcus Cousins, he shoots a lot of threes, and it's only a small sample size he's had with the Milwaukee Bucks. Not as small as a 10-day player by any means, but I think DeMarcus Cousins is a better shooter than that 27% entails. They were calling him the third splash bro out there in Golden State when he was on that roster. So there's that one thing. I think DeMarcus Cousins brings another dimension of shooting, but specifically scoring wise, specifically, looking at the things that the Toronto Raptors need, I think DeMarcus Cousins could really be a player that has a significant impact on this this Toronto Raptors roster if he were to be brought in. And that's something that is, could be a huge lift for this Toronto Raptors team, given the fact, if you look at our issue, right? If you look at the issue, I gotta get centered here. I'm never in the center of these whenever I flip over here. But the thing that the Toronto Raptors have been lacking at times, and we even saw it recently in the Utah game and the game before against the Milwaukee Bucks, that even though our defense does go down the tubes occasionally, giving up corner threes, but I think more so in the recent game against the Jazz, that was just some nuclear shooting by Hughes and Eric Paschal doing his thing, coming out motivated. But our offense sometimes goes into these ridiculous droughts, and we don't necessarily, especially off the bench, Siakam can get his own bucket, OG can get his own bucket, and clearly Fred VanVleet can get their own bucket. But outside of our starters, off the bench, who am I relying upon to get you your a shot right when you need it? Who am I relying on? Svi Mykhailiuk, Fiji Water was supposed to be a guy that could do that for this Toronto Raptors team. However, he has not been able to sort of get his game going at any bit level of consistency, which has just been tough to look at, right? So off the bench, even though we have some good defenders, we have some guys that I think are valuable, and I brought up all of our big men. Reliable score off the bench is not something we've had. It's particularly at the big man position. I think DeMarcus Cousins, play him 15, 20 minutes a game if you have to. He's playing really well, playing more minutes. But even if he's lacking on the defensive end, even if he can't particularly run the schemes, I think he could be very, very valuable. Just as a guy, the offense is stagnant, throw in Boogie and let him get you buckets. Let him make it. Because I know his stats don't indicate that he's a superstar by any means right now, but he has regressed given his injuries. There's no debating that. I'm not out here saying that we're going to get all NBA Boogie if we bring him in, but he does have those star tendencies to where he knows how to play, right? He knows when to pick apart a mismatch, and we saw that in his most recent outing against us, where he can post up, get those spins, get you. We doubled him every time he had the basketball. He still commands those double teams, right? He's driving the lane. He can do those power spins, drop steps, pump fakes in there. And the thing about Boogie, his entire career, is he's been a remarkably underrated passer. He's a guy that, I'm definitely not saying at the level of Marcus Gasol, but I guess in his prime you could make some arguments there. Some people are calling him a point forward, all that sort of stuff. But right, just having him, especially Scotty Barnes out, the rotations, the shots aren't going in. Have him run amok in the high post, especially if teams run those 2-3 zones, which obliterated the Toronto Raptors in the first half against the Jazz. Having Boogie Cousins at the center of that, being able to facilitate, being able to knock down those middies, and then again space the floor. I just think he brings an added dimension to this Toronto Raptors team at a low risk. He's a guy that hasn't had any locker room trouble since his days in Sacramento, right? The Warriors spoke highly of him, the Lakers, the Rockets. All of these teams spoke highly of Boogie. It was only in Sacramento where you'd see those crazy outbursts. Even in New Orleans, he was a guy that his teammates loved and respected. I don't think we have those risks there, so I don't see why we wouldn't bring him in. Well, the one thing that I would say is, and I broke a video on him yesterday, is DJ Wilson. Obviously, he's commanding that final roster spot right now in his current 10-day contract, and I thought he played very solid in his previous outings with the Toronto Raptors. If you want to see my breakdown on Wilson, check out that video. However, he's not getting run with this Raptor squad right now. I said, would he get minutes over Precious? Would he get minutes over Boucher? And at least in the previous outing, especially when those guys were struggling in the first half, couldn't get an opportunity to get on the court out there. And I know he's a guy he's a quintessential Raptors player. He's mobile defensively. He's an all-around guy, and I want to see Wilson play well, because this is the one thing. I don't want Boogie to overtake Wilson's spot. If he's given an opportunity, he's playing well. I think that's a given. If you have a better player on your roster, you don't want to cut him for this. But if we're just not going to play him, if we're just going to treat him like one of those deep bench guys or whatever, I think Boogie has higher upside. And when you look at guys at the end of your bench that aren't really going to get that many minutes anyways, you'd rather be a guy that can come in and just randomly go off for 20, 30 points. Right? I think that's what you'd rather do. Right? Rather have in that sort of position for your team. So that's just my thoughts. That's my thoughts on Boogie Cousins. But am I crazy? I know people look at him as a locker room disease and he's going to ruin the chemistry, but I think he shed that a little bit, even if he's still, emotional out there. And he looked to be pretty friendly with the Toronto Raptors in the previous game, and people have talked about how he trashed on the Raptors fan base. I don't know. After the Kevin Durant thing, I'd like Boogie. Take a risk. Come on, Messiah. Risks win championships. And maybe we get a chip with Boogie Cousins. I don't know. But you guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Lots of big things coming. I'm trying a new audio setup here. I'm working hard today to fix the live stream settings, but we'll see. We'll see how it all looks. May have to switch the setup as well if I get it rocking properly, but y'all are the best. I'm signing off. Cheers.